and studied the shape in the window seat next to her. A large heap of a man, an erupting volcano of sound, a focus for her antagonism. She wanted to scream at him to shut up. Instead, recollecting her older brother Jack's hangover advice from her teenage years, she scrabbled in her bag for her bottle of water. Empty. Bloody typical. There was a long wait until one of the cabin crew shimmied by. Even then, she almost fudged it, her voice snagging in her wet sandpaper mouth and coming out as a strangulated yelp. But she got her water. Then, of course, she needed the loo. And what a mission that was. Foraging under the seats for her shoes, fumbling her way along the aisle, squeezing herself into something hardly bigger than the lockers at school. A wave of nostalgia for St. Anselm's, where she'd perfected the art of giving just the right amount of water to her dear little year ones. Enough to make their brains function, but not so much that the class degenerated into a constant round of visits to the toilet, and in some cases, the inevitable pants wetting. Well, at this moment, most of her 5- and 6-year-olds could teach her a thing or two about self-control. Except they're not mine any longer. As that thought careered into her mind, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The rest of the flight passed in a stupor. Self-pity this time, rather than alcohol. Was a fortnight in Hong Kong really going to help her sort out the rest of her life? At best, it would be a distraction. At worst, a reminder that she wasn't used to holidaying alone. But it offered some much-needed distance from the mess she'd left behind. Hong Kong International Airport was in its early afternoon stride, all hustle and bustle among the sunlit steel and glass. She'd have preferred the bleary-eyed morning in tune with her body clock. In security, she joined a long queue and tried to force her scrambled brain to behave. Had she completed the immigration form correctly? A wild impulse had almost propelled her to choose the maximum entry visa of 6 months. Imagine putting off all those big decisions until April. But a swift reality check saved her. Money would run out long before then. She had to be home for Christmas. Her stomach knotted at the very thought. Since she was 12, Christmas had involved a split personality. There was the Pip who went through the motions of merriment to please those around her, initially her teenage peers, more recently the children she taught. And there was the Pip who caved in to the family tradition of remembering the man they'd lost. Lost not to some chance event, like an accident or cancer or a heart attack, where she could focus the blame and lessen the guilt, but in the most terrible way. Suicide, where the blame and the guilt shifted over the years between Dad, Mum, Jack, and herself. She squared her shoulders. Christmas was 2 months away. In the meantime, she had a wonderful, relaxing holiday to look forward to, as well as catching up with her old friend Tara. They'd started out together at St. Anselm's, fresh from teacher training, their hopes still undented by experience. Then, around 3 years ago, Tara had decided on a complete change. She hadn't needed a relationship meltdown to prompt her. She'd simply got fed up with the work. Too much pressure and not enough funding, was how she put it. And the weather. She'd become an international nanny, where she could focus on 1 or 2 children at a time, while enjoying non-stop sunshine in exotic parts of the world. For several months now, she'd been in Hong Kong, and, it seemed, too busy to make contact, apart from occasional one-liners. When she'd heard about the breakup with Darren, though, she'd coaxed Pip into a visit. Tara would be at the airport to greet her. If she ever got out of here. And Tara was a new audience for the whole sorry saga of Darren, with an added twist. Unlike her other friends, Tara had known him as long as Pip. The security queue was moving at a snail's pace, and Pip battled her natural impatience. She needed to go with the flow for the next 2 weeks. No decisions to make, no expectations to manage, no betrayal to smile through. That had been the hardest part. In the aftermath of leaving Darren, taking refuge at her mother's and handing in her notice at St. Anselm's, the thought of continuing to teach in the same school had been unbearable. She'd called in sick and started counting the days to half-term, when her notice would take effect.